A young man and his date were parked on a secluded back road, some distance from town. Just as they were about to have an act, the girl paused and said, "I really should have mentioned this earlier, but I'm actually getting $20 for this." The man hardly paid her, and they went ahead with it. Afterward, as they sat in the car, the man rolled down the car window and stared out the window in silence. "Why aren't we going anywhere?" the girl asked. The man turned to her and said, "Well, I probably should have mentioned this before, but I'm actually a taxi driver and the fare back to town is 20." The place was hopping with music and loud conversation, and every once in a while, the lights would turn off. Each time the lights would go out, the place would erupt into cheers. However, when the revelers saw the nun, the room went dead silent. She walked up to the waiter and asked, "May I please use the restroom?" The waiter replied, "Okay, but I should warn you that there is a statue of a naked man in there wearing only a fig leaf." "Well, in that case, I'll just look the other way," said the nun. So the waiter showed the nun to the back of the restaurant. After a few minutes, she came back out, and the whole place stopped just long enough to give the nun a loud round of applause. She went to the waiter and said, "Sir, I don't understand. Why did they applaud for me just because I went to the restroom?" "Well, now they know you're one of us," said the waiter. "Would you like a drink?" "No, thank you, but I still don't understand," said the puzzled nun. "You see," laughed the waiter, "every time someone lifts the fig leaf on that statue, the lights go out. Now how about that drink?" A new doctor moved into town 4 months ago. I'm a doctor too, so I started getting nervous when some of my regulars stopped booking appointments. Then the record requests started rolling in. One by one, my patients were switching over. After a few months, I'd lost 37% of my appointments. Fed up, I called the new guy's office to confront him. And while I sat on hold, I heard their smug little message. "Thank you for your patience. I've never been roasted so politely in my life." A man asked his doctor if he thought he had lived to be 100. The doctor asked the man, "Do you smoke or drink?" "No," he replied. "I've never done either." "Do you gamble, drive fast cars, and fool around with women?" inquired the doctor. "No, I've never done any of those things either." "Well then," said the doctor, "what do you want to live to be 100 for?" A kid called up his mom from his college and asked her for some money because he was broke. His mother said, "Sure, sweetie, I will send you some money. You also left your calculus book here when you visited 2 weeks ago. Do you want me to send that up too?" Uh, oh yeah, okay, responded the kid. So his mom wrapped the book along with the checks up in a package, kissed Dad goodbye, and went to the post office to mail the money and the book. When she gets back, Dad asked, "Well, how much did you give the boy this time?" "Oh, I wrote two checks, one for $20 and the other for 1,000 out to him." "That's 10 bushes," yelled Dad. "Are you crazy?" "Don't worry, hon," Mom said, kissed Dad on top of his bald head. "I taped the 20 check to the cover of his book, but I put the $1,000 one somewhere between the pages in chapter 19. A husband and wife are out to dinner for their anniversary. The husband raises his glass and toasts to 50 wonderful years together. "It may not have always been easy, but I have always loved you and been honest with you, and I hope you have always loved and been honest with me as well." The wife replies, "Well, remember when we were first married and you lost your job? Well, I went down to the bank and slept with the broker in order to get an extension on our mortgage." The husband, shocked, says, "Honey, that was a long time ago and you did it for us. I forgive you." The wife continues, "Well, remember when you started your business, we didn't have health insurance and you needed that surgery. Well, I slept with the surgeon and he did it for free." The husband, again shocked, says, "I can't believe I'm just hearing about this, but I understand that you did it for me. I love you and I forgive you for sleeping with those two men." The wife replies, "Here's the thing. remember last year when you were running for Rotary Club president and were trailing by 32 votes? Ah, It was Christmas Eve when she burst through the door, arms overflowing with last-minute shopping bags. Her husband raised an eyebrow but said nothing. 'Tis the season for mysterious errands. Later that night, as she changed for bed, he noticed something unusual on her inner thigh. Him. What's that? Her, grinning. A little holiday spirit. Got tattoos. Merry Christmas on one leg. Happy New Year on the other. Him. Wait, why? Her, deadpan. So you can't say there's nothing festive going on between Christmas and New Year's. Cue stunned silence, and maybe distant sleigh bells. Or was that just the sound of a man realizing he married a legend? One night, Tim was walking home when all of a sudden a thief jumped on him. Tim and the thief began to wrestle. They rolled about on the ground, and Tim put up a tremendous fight. However, the thief managed to get the better of him and pinned him to the ground. The thief then went through Tim's pockets and searched him. All the thief could find on Tim was 25 cents. The thief was so surprised at this that he asked Tim why he had bothered to fight so hard for a 25 cents. Was that all you wanted? Tim replied, I thought you were after the $500 I've got in my shoe. Women can choose a husband from 6 floors. Each floor gets better, but there's a catch. Once you go up a floor, you can't go back down unless you leave the store completely. A woman goes shopping. Floor 1. These men have jobs. Better than my ex. Let's see what's upstairs. Floor 2. These men have jobs and love kids. Nice, but what else is up there? Floor 3. These men have jobs, love kids, and are extremely good looking. Getting warmer. Floor 4. These men have jobs, love kids, are extremely good looking, and help with housework. Wow, but maybe the next floor is even better. Floor 5. These men have jobs, love kids, are extremely good looking, help with housework, and are deeply romantic. She clutches her heart. This is amazing, but just imagine what's on floor 6. She ascends. Floor 6. You are visitor 6 down 175, 953, 112. There are no men on this floor. This floor exists solely to prove that women are impossible to please. Robert, who is 85, married Jenny, a lovely 25-year-old. Since her new husband is so old, Jenny decides that after their wedding, she and Robert should have separate bedrooms, because she is concerned that her new but aged husband may overexert himself if they spend the entire night together. After the wedding festivities, Jenny prepares herself for bed and the expected knock on the door. Sure enough, the knock comes. The door opens and there is Robert, her 85-year-old groom ready for action. They unite as one. All goes well, Robert takes leave of his bride and she prepares to go to sleep. After a few minutes, Jenny hears another knock on her door, and it's Robert. Again, he is ready for more action. Somewhat surprised, Jenny consents for more coupling. When the newlyweds are done, bids her a fond goodnight and leaves. Jenny is set to go to sleep again, but you guessed it, Robert is back again, and is as fresh as a 25-year-old, ready for more action. Once more they enjoy each other, but as Robert gets set to leave again, his young bride says to him, I am thoroughly impressed that at your age you can perform so well and so often. I have been with guys less than a third of your age who were only good once. You are truly a great lover, Robert. Robert, somewhat embarrassed, turns to Jenny and says, You mean I was here already? Mr. Smith goes to the doctor complaining about a constant headache. The doctor runs some tests and tells the guy, Take these pills for a month. These are very potent, so you take one of these one day, and then skip a day, and then take another one the next day and skip the next day and so on for a month. You can visit me after a month. A few months go by and the doctor runs into the man's wife in the market one day. "Mrs. Smith, how nice to see you here. How are you doing and how's your husband's headache now?" The wife replied, "Oh, you haven't heard. My husband passed away a couple of months ago." The doctor was surprised. "I'm sorry to hear that. That's unfortunate. Was it the headache? I thought the pills I gave him were very strong and should have worked." "There was nothing wrong with the pills. They worked just fine," replied the wife. "It was all the skipping that killed him." The king wanted to go fishing. He asked the royal weather forecaster for the forecast for the next few hours. The palace meteorologist assured him there was no chance of rain. So the king and queen went fishing. On the way, the king met a man with a fishing pole riding a donkey and asked him, "Are the fish biting today?" The fisherman replied, "Your Majesty, you should return to the palace. I expect a huge rainstorm any minute now." The king, confident, said, "I hold the palace meteorologist in high regard. He is an educated and experienced professional. Besides, I pay him a lot. He gave me a very different forecast, and I trust him." So, the king continued on his way. However, not long after, torrential rain began pouring from the sky, soaking both the king and queen. Furious, the king returned to the palace and fired the meteorologist on the spot. Then, he summoned the fisherman and offered him the prestigious position of royal forecaster. The fisherman said, "Your Majesty, I know nothing about weather forecasting. I just rely on my donkey. When I see its ears drooping, I know for sure it's going to rain." And so, the king hired the donkey. And thus began the tradition of hiring dumbasses to hold influential positions in government. This couple go to an agricultural show way out in the countryside. A fine Sunday afternoon and are watching the auctioning off of bulls. The guy selling the bulls announces the first bull to be auctioned off. A fine specimen, this bull reproduced 57 times last year. The wife nudges her husband in the ribs and comments, "See? That was more than once a week." The second bull is to be sold. Another fine specimen, this wonder reproduced 120 times last year. Again, the wife bugs her husband. "Hey, that's more than twice a week. What do you say to that?" Her husband is getting really annoyed with this comparison. The third bull is up for sale. "And this extraordinary specimen reproduced 305 times last year." The wife slaps her husband on the arm and yells, "That's once a day, every day of the year. How about you?" The husband was pretty irritated by now and yells back, "Sure, once a day. Great. But you asked the auctioneer if they were all with the same cow." A woman decided she was going to take up ice fishing. She watched a few videos online, bought herself a fancy rod, a cozy stool, and even a thermos of hot chocolate. She was ready. She headed to the nearest frozen lake, found a quiet spot, and started drilling a hole in the ice, just like she saw on YouTube. Suddenly, a deep voice echoed across the ice. "There are no fish under the ice." She froze, looked around, no one in sight. Brushing it off, she grabbed her things and moved to another spot, this time further down the ice. She took a sip of her hot chocolate and started drilling again. "There are no fish under the ice," the voice repeated, even louder. Now she was starting to get nervous, but stubbornness kicked in, so she walked all the way to the edge of the lake and began again. Just as she finished cutting a third hole, the voice thundered one more time. "There are no fish under the ice." Shaken, she stood up and shouted into the sky, "Who are you? God?" The voice calmly replied, "No, I'm the rink manager. You're on a hockey arena." A man is walking through the supermarket, holding a basket and looking a bit lost. He notices a very attractive, beautiful, and fit young woman nearby. He walks up to her with a friendly smile. "Excuse me, could you walk with me for a couple of minutes?" The woman looks confused and asks, "Why?" He replies, "I've lost my wife, Sam, and every time I talk to a pretty woman, she magically appears out of nowhere." The woman chuckles and says, "That's oddly specific." He points behind her and says, "See? Told you. There she is." A commercial airline pilot finally ties the knot with his longtime girlfriend, a sharp, no-nonsense air traffic controller known for keeping cool under pressure. On their honeymoon, he decides it's time to set the tone. "Look, babe," he says, laying down the law. "My job's demanding. I'll land when I land, no questions. I'll sleep when I can, party with the crew when I want, and if a flight delay keeps me overnight, you deal with it. And when I'm home, I expect peace. Understood." She calmly sips her coffee, nods, and says sweetly, "Totally fair." Then she leans in with a smile. "Just so you know, takeoffs around here happen nightly at 9 p.m. No delays, no reroutes, and tower control always clears the runway." A commercial airline pilot finally ties the knot with his longtime girlfriend, a sharp, no-nonsense air traffic controller known for keeping cool under pressure. On their honeymoon, he decides it's time to set the tone. "Look, babe," he says, laying down the law. "My job's demanding. I'll land when I land, no questions. I'll sleep when I can, party with the crew when I want, and if a flight delay keeps me overnight, you deal with it. And when I'm home, I expect peace. Understood." She calmly sips her coffee, nods, and says sweetly, "Totally fair." Then she leans in with a smile. "Just so you know, takeoffs around here happen nightly at 9 p.m. No delays, no reroutes, and tower control always clears the runway."